Hello and welcome back to Lorcana Villain. My name is Baker, and today we're going to be looking at 9 rogue decks for set 5 meta. I'm actually super excited for this video. While I always usually prioritize the meta from a content perspective and from a preference perspective as well, I do like a theme deck. I do like a bit of fun, and the video I did for this in set 4 ended up being quite popular. Most of the deck lists I made were misses. There were a couple that were more on the rogue side as opposed to just a bit of fun around the kitchen table, and I think the same is true for the list I've got for you today. Some of them definitely have potentially more legs than others. Some definitely fall more into this the theme deck category. But if you're looking for things like that and you like the idea of building decks around specific archetypes, then this is the video for you. When I did my look at a bunch of meta decks, I was up front and said the majority of them were inspired from decks I'd already seen for the community, bar a couple of my own creations, Ruby Amethyst, and I'd done one of my own Amethyst Steel. But for this video, these are all completely my own creation. Again, there may be already builds that are similar to what I've made that people did before, but I didn't look at any other deck lists for this. I just cooked with the archetypes that I wanted to cook with. So I'm excited to go into this. A quick shout out to the channel sponsor, Cardmarket. If you're looking for Lorcana singles at competitive rates, then check out Cardmarket. Before we go into the video though, I am going to pause and I'm going to address a little bit of feedback that I got from the previous video, which was covering the top 8 deck lists from the Cerberus Den event. Now, before I start this, I do want to make a point of saying my channel is just over a year old now. I know I haven't officially said that because I'm planning a whole video where it's going to be like, we're 1 year old, and I'm going to rant about a load of stuff and say thank you and all that sort of jazz. So wait for that video, but we are technically just over a year old at this point, and I bring this up to say 99.9% of every comment I've ever had across, I think, nearly 150 videos, averaging between 2 to 5k views, and some getting above that. And I recently had my most viewed video of all time, which thank you very much. And across all of that and a lot of comments, I think I can count on one hand the amount of comments that have been just specifically bluntly rude or like a personal attack for something, which I think for YouTube content is pretty good going. So love and respect to all of you. It's like there's been plenty of like criticism, but I don't look at criticism as necessarily rude. Like, I think a lot of it is very fair and worded kindly. But yeah, like one hand I can count things that I think have been actually specifically rude. So shout out for that. And this comment that I'm about to read out, I don't think is necessarily intended as being rude, and I'm gonna take it as good faith. So we've got, so tired of hearing dies to Medusa. She's barely even in the top decks you brief us, and if she is run, a lot of the times it's 2 to 3 at most. Now, there's been a couple of comments to this. The dies to Maui is also so annoying. You know what else dies to Maui? Maui. And then agreed the it dies to blank needs to stop overall. I can understand if it's during the start of a new set, like Villain said, he would talk more about cards because maybe there are new people coming into the game. But we should all stop negging a card because it dies to a specific card, unless it is absolutely key to address the situation. So I want to give my opinion on all this while still completely being open to further criticism, and like my mind could be changed. I am aware that hearing dies to Medusa, dies to Brawl a lot, and it's been happening for like Medusa especially, who we've had for a while now, can get annoying. And there have been videos I've done in the past where when I can sense like halfway through, however long through, that I've said it a lot, I've made the point of saying, apologizing for bringing it up so much, but usually then following up with but I'm highlighting it so many times because X. But I still understand the opinion, and I have tried, and I thought I was doing better over recent times to not do it as much. Now, I could be wrong. There could be all videos or select videos where maybe I did it a little bit more than necessary. I have always thought of my channel as a bridge from beginner or intermediate to more advanced play. I do not think, nor have I ever claimed to be the best player in the world. I don't think I'm in the top 1% of players by any means. But I think I'm good enough. I think I am talented enough at the game and good enough at breaking it down to be able to make the content that I do. Obviously, you don't have to agree with that. There could be people that literally watch my content just because they like to skip through and look at all the lists, and that's absolutely fine. I have no issue with that whatsoever. I think some videos I have a lot more advanced, high-level takes, and then for other videos I come from it it from a much more beginner-friendly perspective. Like Stephen Chambers pointed out here that I did mention, and has always been the case, more towards the beginning of a set. I will go through every single card. Nearly everyone will come up on the screen. I'll read what they'll all do. And I think this set in particular, I've found the right balance of, because definitely in past sets, I've maybe done that for a bit too long through the meta. But this time, I think I've done a lot better. Like the first video, we've looked at 3 sets of actual top 8 deck lists, and then 1 like meta decks video of my own. And the first video, looking at Battle Bear, I broke down every single card. Then the second video was already dramatically less. And when we did the most recent Cerberus Den video, I feel like the only cards I entirely read out were either cards that were set 5, or maybe prior cards that don't see as much play. Like I think I read out all of Perdita, for an example, which of course does see some play, but again, not necessarily something we talk about all the time. So I already feel like I'm doing a better job of balancing that, but of course I'm always still open to people to feedback. But at the end of the day, I still consider myself, I want all my videos to be friendly to people who know nothing or little about the game, to be able to follow along, know what enough things do, and hear enough of these specific interactions that I believe are important. Now, Medusa and Brawl just happen to be 2 of the most important interactions in the game. Yes, they are only you're only bothered if they are playing a deck with red in it, but as time has been proven time after time, red is consistently among those top play decks, normally through Ruby Amethyst or through Ruby Sapphire generally. So these are things that are going to come out a lot, and I think even in my previous video looking at Cerberus Den, I may be wrong. Like I had a flick through of the video to like try and be more precise. But the only times I think I even mention Medusa, other than to directly mention that she's in a deck, was to point out, I think for this list, I talked about how if you're Lumiere, then you stay out of Medusa range. And I think I mentioned it again when talking about Archimedes, and specifically the fact that it can be brawled, but I also prefaced that by saying, but if you've just shifted Archimedes and immediately sung or got value in some way, then even if he is immediately removed, it's not always the end of the world. Again, I could be wrong. There could be a few more times where I mention Medusa and brawl too much. But I think most of the time when I am pointing out that specific interaction, I think it's because it is important to the game. Like I don't just at every 1 drop go dies to Medusa, but if you're a 4 or 5 drop that immediately dies to Medusa and doesn't get some sort of come into play ability, then I do think it's a super important interaction to point out. And again, some of you maybe, the point being that I know a lot of you already know that and don't always need it all pointing out. But again, my idea with the channel is always to be as beginner friendly as I can. I want to be able to appeal to a player base that are newer to the game and help them keep up while still going at a pace that isn't just completely, basically slow mode for players that know every card already. Of course, videos at the beginning of a format will always be reading through every card, but that's kind of the way I feel about it. But again, as always, I'm super open to feedback. Again, I would rather most of the comments in this video aren't about this specifically, because we're gonna look at some fun deck lists now. But by all means, like if you've got something to say about it, then like make a comment, and then if you wanna say something, see if there's already like a comment with like a thread going on, and try and keep it to one place. That would be great. But again, that's just how I feel about it. I'm open to feedback, but as it stands, that's how I feel. So I will continue to point out when things that I think are important get banished to Medusa or Brawl, but still saying that with full admission that I do understand that doing it too much can be annoying, and I will certainly watch it. Right, that's it for the admin. Now let's take a look at some rogue deck lists. Okay, the time has finally come, my villains, where we have built a dedicated Ratigan deck. And if you're newer to the channel and you didn't know, Ratigan is my absolute boy from the brain that brought you the big bed caper, the head that made headlines in every newspaper, and wondrous things like the Tower Bridge job, the cunning display that made London a sob. Now comes the real tour de force, tricky and wicked of course. My earlier crimes were fine for the times, but now that I'm at it again, and even grimmer plot has been simmering in my great criminal brain. Even meaner, you mean it, worse than the widows and often should drown. You're the best of the worst around. Oh Ratigan, oh Ratigan, the rest fall behind. That goes higher than I remember it going. Oh Ratigan, oh Ratigan, the world's greatest criminal mind. I realise some of you hated that. Acknowledged. Okay. We got some Ratigan. So let's look at the main man himself that the entire deck is built around. We have the new Ratigan Party Crasher, 7-cost uninkable, 5/5 quest for 3, shift 4, evasive, and delightfully wicked. Your damaged characters, very important, gets +2 strength. So that is our big bad Floodborn. And we also, in the new set, got the 3-cost inkable Ratigan Raging Rat. He's a 1/5 quest for 1, and nothing can stand in my way. While this character has damage, he gets +2 strength. And finally, we have the very large mouse from Rise of the Floodborn. 5-cost uninkable, 3/3 quest for 2, and this is my kingdom. When you play this character, exert chosen opposing character with 3 strength or less. Choose one of your characters and ready them. They can't quest for the rest of the turn. That's it. I'm never mentioning that it dies to Medusa anymore. You get exerted by Ratigan. That is the new dice to Medusa. I'm gonna push that hard. So these are the boys that we're going to be working around. So obviously this very large mouse, this is a pretty good effect, being able to re-ready one of your characters. Maybe you're just keeping something safe, or you're singing and then questing, something like that. And of course exerting opposing characters is super good, and 3 strength or less is not bad range to be in. And our other 2 Ratigans specialising in being, well, one specialising in being damaged and one supports cards that are banished. So if we have damage on this Raging Rat, then we're a 3/5, which is perfectly fine for a 3-drop. Like really nice synergy with Rapunzel as well. And of course, if we've got this Party Crasher on board as well, he's a 5/5, and of course just +2 strength to any damage character. So that's what we want to build around. So we are playing a couple of cards that do self-damage. We've got 4 copies of Teeth and Ambitions, which obviously is going to do 2 to opposing characters and 2 to us, and that's going to help us potentially take out Diablos, Flins, or just a little bit of chip damage, but putting the damage on our own characters is going to help to get more characters boosted by Ratigan. We're also playing 2 copies of the new Gaston, Pure Paragon, 9-cost uninkable, 10/6 quest for 2, and you pay 2 less for him for each damage character you have in play, and he has Rush. So if the name of the game is damage characters, then Gaston should be super online. We're also playing the 1-drop Mulan, 2/3, and enters play with 2 damage, and Mother Gothel, who enters play with 3 damage, because they're just going to synergize immediately with not only the Ratigan and the Gaston, but of course we're playing 4 copies of Rapunzel, who's going to have hopefully so much what's a Gleam and Glow. There's going to be a lot of Gleam and Glow on Gleam and Glow is going to be online. Words are hard. But of course, since we are playing this Mulan, we are also going to be playing the Elite Archer, 6-cost inkable, 2/6 quest for 2, shift 5. On play she gets +3, and whenever she does damage, you do the same to a character in a challenge. You do the same damage to up to 2 chosen characters. So this is super helpful against any decks that like Steel Song, EA Tempo, that like puts out a lot of bodies that could quite feasibly have 3 strength or less. And I say 3 strength or less. Sorry, 2 strength or less, because that's its standard strength. But of course on the turn it comes out, as long as there's something to challenge, then you're doing 5 to 3 things. So that is huge. Not to mention there's synergy with the fact that whatever you challenge is most likely doing a little bit of damage to you. So having getting Ratigan onto the board means that your Mulan just sits there as a 4/6, which in itself is pretty cool. So that's very much the sort of like theme deck related cards, and then to support all that, we're running a 4/4 Queen line to give us a little bit more board control. Also gets our 2 copies of the World's Greatest Criminal Mind online, which of course we had to play in this Ratigan's deck. So obviously, like, as I said, gonna get more characters into that range. And we're also playing 1 copy of the Most Diabolical Scheme, 3-cost uninkable, banish chosen villain of yours to banish chosen character. Now this, in a lot of instances, can just be you're minusing 1 really. You're getting rid of 2 cards because you lose the Most Diabolical Scheme and the villain to get rid of one of theirs. But at least you can sing it. And hey, if we have been able to get big draw turns off, courtesy of Rapunzel, and we've also got Julieta Madrigal here, who works well with damage characters, then hey, this could be online. And again, it's part of the theming of the deck. We're running 1 copy, just 1 copy of Minnie Mouse, who's a 1/3. This was just to have an extra 1-drop in here. I don't know, the Mini is obviously super flexible. Running 3 copies of Ursula Vanessa, who is a villain, so synergy with the Most Diabolical Scheme, and she can sing, like, other than B Prep, all of these songs, because we're also playing 1 copy of B King Undisputed, which I think is fine as a one-off. And again, if you're going to run Ursula, then, which I wanted to do, because obviously villain, Diabolical Scheme, some of these could absolutely be changed around. I mentioned the Rapunzels, 3 Maui for board control, 2 Medusa, because Medusa, and then we have got 4 copies of Bare Necessities. Obviously, because we're not MOO-Fasa, we can play this non-character package. So all the songs I've mentioned, other than obviously 2B Prep, you could go higher if you want to. But I think really we're aiming to get our board clears courtesy of Mulan, and again, Ratigan also can exert them to get Mulan online, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, just 4 bear to take away those B preps, and like we can be super weak to grab swords potentially depending on our board. So yeah, that is our Ratigan list. Let me know what you think. Alright, let's go to the list that I think is probably the worst and definitely the most just fun theme deck around the table. Because just look at this absolute pile. But I've built around Hyenas. Obviously, love the new Scar art-wise. Love the character, and yeah, this is very. Even though they aren't villains, I think this is very much on theme, and yeah, they're interesting. I don't think they're great, but yeah, we're trying to get the Hyenas to work. So one of the main ways that we could really benefit from Hyenas is courtesy of Shenzi Head Hyena, 5-cost Inkable 3/6 quest for 1. She gets +1 strength for each other Hyena in play, and whenever one of your Hyena characters challenges a damaged character, gain 2 lore. So really we want to get to a position where we've got a couple of Hyenas on board. They've got a couple of exerted characters. They also need to be damaged. We got to tick a lot of boxes here. And then we get down Shenzi, and then we can potentially get a big lore jump in that turn. Like I said, it's still not great, but I wanted to build around it nonetheless. So let's look at our other Hyenas. I'm running 3 copies of Shenzi Scar's Accomplice, 3-cost Inkable 2/3 quest for 1, evasive, and she gets +2 strength when challenging a damaged character. We're running 2 copies of Ed, Laughing Hyena, 3-cost Uninkable 2/3 quest for 1, and on play you deal 2 damage to chosen damaged character. 3 copies of Bonsai, Taunting Hyena, 2-cost Inkable 2/2 quest for 1, and on play you can exert a chosen damaged character. And 2 copies of Bonsai, Gluttonous Predator, 2-cost Uninkable 3/2 quest for 2. That is the Hyena package that I've gone with. I'm not playing the Shenzi that needs to be at a location to get +3 strength, and whenever she challenges another character you can draw a card. Nor am I playing the new Hysterical Party Goer. As great as the art is, 4-cost and Inkable 2/4 quest for 3, damaged characters can't challenge this character. I just don't think it's worth. But we are playing the 4-cost Inkable Scar Vengeful Lion. 4/2, quest for 1, ward, and life's not fair, is it? Whenever one of your characters challenges a damaged character, you may draw a card. So again, if the aim of the game is to do damage and then challenge, obviously Shenzi is the one that really makes that come online from turn 5 to gain lore, but drawing cards is indeed king. So if we can get this to work, then sounds pretty cool. So how are we initially doing damage outside of challenges, of course? One of the main cards that we're leaning into is the Ursula Deceiver of All, 3-cost Inkable 2/3 quest for 1, and when she sings a song she can sing it twice. We are playing 4 copies of Storm and 4 copies of Strength or Raging Fire. I think this is probably our most surefire way to get damage on multiple opposing characters, and for that reason you may instinctively want to come up to 4, and I wouldn't blame you at all to go to 4. Tinkerbell, obviously from 6, is a way of doing spread damage to the entire board. Maybe you want to play around with playing the 3-drop so that you can shift, but I think the 3-drop is super competitive in this list, but maybe you want to take out some of my 3-drops and add her in. I wouldn't blame you. Obviously, these songs I've mentioned, I'm running 3 copies of Grab Your Swords, which I think is going to be your other main way of doing this. Another card that you could look at is the 2-cost Uninkable Robin Hood, who on exert does 1 ping, but I don't think he's consistent enough. We are running a 4/4 Robin Hood line, because we're a whole new world variant. We want to have that on, like, hopefully play out Hyena every turn. We don't have great draw if we can't get Scar online, and you can't consistently get him online on curve, I don't think. Sometimes you will. Sometimes you'll get away with it, and again, matchup dependent. But I think a lot of the time we just want to be, we do want to be playing a whole new world early. We're not looking to necessarily do the drop Shenzi on 5 immediately benefit. If we can, great, but I don't think that's going to be realistic most of the time. I think you find the right point for it. So yeah, Robin Hood is still worth running, but again, because we're running this line, if you want to make room for the 2-cost Uninkable, then I wouldn't blame you. Another card we're running, which does immediate damage without them even being damaged, is the Stitch Team Underdog, 4-cost Uninkable 1/4 quest for 1, and on play you just deal 2 damage to chosen character. I don't have many 4-drops, so that was one of the reasons that I wanted to run this. But also, again, it is one of our limited ways of doing damage to a character that isn't already damaged. So this is absolutely flex. You may want to take this out, but this is definitely something like this. If I built this in cardboard, the Hyenas, then this is the list I would probably start with. But I honestly think that relying on Ursula for the early game and potentially Grab Your Swords for the early game, because obviously you can sing it after shifting, and then by 6 being able to use Tink, and then you can just use Strength and Storm at like points that make sense. And just challenges as well. I think that's kind of all you need. Another interesting card and like filling up our 3-drop slots. We've got 2 copies of Jack and 1 copy of Lyle. Jack's a 1/4 quest for 2. Lyle's a 2/4 quest for 1. They both give Reckless to a character, but Lyle has the added ability that while he's on board, if they banish if one of your characters is banished just banished, then each opponent loses 1 lore, so he can be super good. But just giving Reckless and making them challenge into you not only is hopefully assuring a little bit of ping damage on them, but also that's just good. Potentially they're not questing. So yeah, I think there's every reason to increase these counts, to be honest, and I'm playing higher counts of Jack and Lyle than another deck that we'll eventually get to. But honestly, I honestly think that's all of that is enough to, as consistently as possible, be able to get damage on opposing characters. I'm running a 3/2 Simba line. The 1-drop can help us find key pieces that we need and throw away some of those one-offs if we get them at the 1 point, like a Stitch. But also just 2 copies of the Floodborn being able to instantly remove an item or a location. We don't have many ways of doing that, so I thought that was pretty good just addition, and again, it gives us more 1-drops. And again, just Simba questing and then them taking him out can be a nice little setup for the Ed that we're running that on play does 2 damage to chosen damaged character. I think this could be super online. Like, if you play Simba on 1 and then quest, they're probably gonna take it out because quite often he's not trading if they play something that's at least a 2/2. So then quite a lot of the time Ed just comes down and takes that character out immediately. So that's pretty cool. I'm running 2 copies of Beast Wolfsbane, 5-cost uninkable, 4/4 quest for 2, rush, and on play, exert all opposing damaged characters. So having a rush character is good, his stat line is not bad, and again, if we want to be able to utilize Scar and Shenzi, who need us to be able to be challenging, then exerting all opposing characters is good for us so that we can hopefully, because if they're not ready for that, then they just won't turn sideways. So this is a way of forcing it, and also why these 3 copies of Bonsai I think are good. You don't really want to play them on curve, but later on in the game, they're a good way of just exerting, and again, it's another Hyena on board to hopefully then benefit from Shenzi. So that is my Hyena deck. Super open to suggestions from in the comments for all of these decks, by the way. So if this is one that interests you, let me know what you think. Next up, we've got my Jafar list. Now, I built this before seeing the list that made top 8 in the Cerberus Den event the other day, and I haven't made any changes to what they were running, but I am going to point out they were running Blue Fairy, which I think is an absolutely fair shout, especially because I'm running 4 copies of the Dreadnought, which I think was my only main criticism for that deck, especially because they were running the Blue Fairy, so I think there's every reason to get them in here, and some people may want to also use the Amethyst Chromacon, which is obviously both players draw, but if you've got Jafar exerted, then you're also gaining lore. I'm running 2 copies of Elsa, mostly because I didn't have many 5-drops, and I liked the idea of Dreadnought on 4 and then Elsa on 5 to immediately exert and challenge into something, but I think that's super flex. I think I think the Blue Fairies are a good shout. I would probably find room to make room for them. But other than that, we're a pretty standard Jafar list. Obviously, the Striking Illusionist, when he's exerted, gaining lore whenever you draw. I'm running 4 copies of the Royal Vizier, who's a 2-drop and gets evasive during your turn, and 3 strength is really good. The Dreadnought, as I said, and I'm also running 3 copies of the Lamp Thief, who I just like. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck, 1 on the top, 1 on the bottom. It's just another Jafar to assure that you can get this off as consistently as possible. It's flex. I think the 4 Royal Vizier and 4 Dreadnought are probably enough, so if you're looking for cuts, I think that's more than reasonable. I am running 3 Pete to upset action, so hopefully they aren't able to immediately remove our Jafar as soon as we pass 1 turn with him on the board. Zeus is for removal, obviously Friends for draw, Rabbits for draw, Chernabog and Magic Brooms for draw. At one point I was running Olafs because I still really like them, but I think this makes a lot more sense. 4/4 Robin Hood line, so we've got another shift line to sing a whole new world. Standard bounce package. I also think there's a good argument to get the Archimedes line in here that the player was running in the list here. The list we looked at the other day, they were running Archimedes, which I think is totally reasonable. But yeah, this is my Jafar list. Let me know what you think. Alright, going on to my Ruby Steel Heroes list. Now, this is the one that's most inspired by a prior list, specifically from Tim and Fabian, who are both Ravensburger employees that destroyed me with a set 4 version of this list with me on Ruby Amethyst over the course of, I think it was Bochum. Yeah, it was Germany. And I featured the deck list that they were both playing, and I've updated it to set 5, what I would go with, which isn't really a lot of change. So yeah, we are a heroes list utilizing Philatites, who gives challenge 1 to all your heroes, and whenever you play a hero, you just gain 1 lore. And you'll see the vast majority of our list are heroes. The only ones that aren't are Lumiere and Benja and Philatites himself. Other than that, everything is a hero, so that's super good. But yeah, we are kind of all in on but we're a whole new world variant. We've got the 4/4 Robin Hood. We've also got a 4/4 Mickey Mouse line, with this Floodborn with being one of the most efficient shifters that we have in the game, just because it's another shift on 3, but the 1 drop you have to do 3 damage to, so it is a very efficient shifter. Of course, the body is like very subpar compared to Robin Hood, but we just want to make sure that we've got this online as often as possible. So he's a way that we can sing our 5-cost songs, and the body isn't bad. Resist 1 and questing for 2, and this stat line is okay. So I really like him as an inclusion. We're running 4 copies of Lumiere, getting things out of the range of Brawl, Medusa, Under the Sea, things like that. I am still running 2 copies of the 2-cost is it Standard Bearer? The 2-cost Mickey Mouse, which was originally our cheapest Mickey to shift, our Playful Sorcerer. Obviously, our new 1-drop is so much better, but this gives us another character that make sure more often than not we do have access to our shift line, and it can be super relevant against Daisy Duck because he gives Challenger 2 on play, so your Robin Hood could immediately take out their Daisy if they don't have a bodyguard. Running 3 Benja for item removal, running a 4/1 Sisu line, Sisu a hero, and just such an incredible body, and having 1 of the uninkable Floodborn, I think it's just a good shout. We've got 4 my own for ball control, running 4 copies of Beast. He's a hero if nothing else, and if his ability does stick, then all the better. 2 copies of Brawl. We are running 2 Storm and 4 Strength for Raging Fire. Only 2 Storm because we don't have many singers. I don't think it's going to be as consistently online as to warrant more than 2, or definitely not 4. But I still think having 2 is good. It's a little bit more card draw. Strength for a Raging Fire at the end of the day is Inkaborn. We're hoping to build wide. I still think 2 Brawl is pretty good for Robin Hood and for Flavisham, and there's a couple of other targets. So this is the split I've gone with, and then obviously the songs. So yeah, not a huge amount of updates for set 5. Literally the only set 5 card we're playing is the new Mickey, but I still think this is a super fun archetype, and this is my original build for it. Alright, another deck that I definitely think verges more on the fun theme deck side. Another absolute pile. We're playing Long Live the Queen. So we got a couple of interesting new queens in set 5. The main event, the big boss really, being the 5-cost Ingable, Fairest of All. 2/6. She's a shift 3, quest for 1. She has Ward and Reflections of Vanity. For each other character named the Queen you have in play, this character gets +1 lore. So the name of the game obviously being play as many queens as we can, and then have her questing for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we're also playing 2 copies of Lucky Dime, so we can do it multiple times, all the better. We're also playing 2 copies of the new Crown of the Council, 4-cost uninkable 3/2, quest for 2. She also has Ward and Gatherer of the Wicked. When you play this character, look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You may reveal any number of characters named the Queen and put them into your hand. For the put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. This is definitely the Queen, which is the most you can take it out. It's leaning into our theme. And then the queens we already had, we have this Queen Diviner, 3-cost Ingable 3/3, exert, look at the top 4, and you reveal an item, and if it's 3 cost or less, then you can put it into play, championed by the winner of DLC Bologna. And then we're, of course, playing the standard 4/4 Amber Queen. Oh, and another new queen that we've got. Cruelest of All. 2-cost Ingable, 0/4, quest for 1, and Ward. So, yeah, we want to rush as many queens as we can into play and quest for Queenie for as much as we possibly can. Because we're taking advantage of the Queen Diviner, I've gone with a big item package, again, inspired by the winner of DLC Bologna. Running 4 copies of Maurice's Workshop, so we're drawing whenever we're playing items. 4 Quill for Ramp, we've mentioned the Dime, and then with 4 Porpsicle, and then I've also opted for 2 copies of Lantern to play characters cheaper, and 3 copies of the new Queen's Censor Code at the start of your turn if you have a princess or queen in play game on lore. And Rule Search, exert and pay 2, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a princess or queen, put it into your hand. That could be something that you use occasionally, but I think more often than not, we're mainly playing for this for the game 1 lore. And again, we are running 2 copies of Tamatoa, who does all of this better. He is better, but if you want to play a theme deck of the Queen, then I think this is pretty fun. I also like Lantern because we're not playing a lot of 2-drops. We've obviously got the Queen that I mentioned. 1 copy of Scuttle in here to help find some of these items. And then for supporting characters, we've got 3 Rapunzel and 4 Flavisham. You could make this 4 Rapunzel if you want, but I think Flavisham plus 3 Rapunzel is more often than not going to be enough. But if you want to go 4-4, then be my guest. 1 copy of the new Intellectual Powerhouse, who not only can, I learned from Moyen that the way blue decks lose is by running out of things to do. And obviously you can ramp 2/6 to play this on 4. So that could be something that's super relevant. And he can sing our lone 6-cost song, which we'll get to in a moment. Running 1 copy of Kuzco to put locations and items into the Inkwell for those opposing Lucky Dimes, things like that. We've got 3 copies of Bare Necessities. We want to build wide, so we don't want the grab swords and we don't want the B preps. We want them gone. 2 copies of the World's Greatest Criminal Mind, because we're playing the 4/4 Queen line anyway, and this is already, there's already a lot of characters quite in range of this, but this helps. 1 copy of Let It Go for a more just standard removal if we can't get anything into World's Greatest Criminal Mind range. Things like Tamatoa, Cinderella Stouthearted, that just gotta go. And yes, our new song, Now Meet a Blast from Your Past, whose lies were too good to last. Say hello to your precious Prince Ali! Shout out to the person in the last video who referenced the song. That it made me smile. 6-cost uninkable. Name a card. Return all character cards with that name from your discard to your hand. So like I said, we just want to play as many queens as we can. We've got 4 1-drops and 4 2-drops. So in the later stages of the game, again, we're ramp. We're running 4 copies of Fishbone Quill. You might want to find room for 1 jumper heads or Mickeys in here. I've just gone with a 4 Fishbone. But yeah, could be plausible to be able to, if you've already got Big Queenie out, then on a later turn, sing Blast with Your Past with Gaston or Kuzco, and then you might have enough to really extend and get off a big questing turn with the Queen. So while I think this is one of the weaker ones, I do think it's one of the funner looking ones. So yeah, let me know what you think of my Long Live the Queen. Alright, next up we've got the Mines of 7. I think that was my D&D brain going off when I named this. But yeah, I was always super interested in building a deck around the new 7 Dwarves that we've got in set 5. So let's take a look at all of them. We've got 4 copies of the new 1-drop Happy, 2 1 quest for 1, and during your turn he has Evasive. We are running 3 copies of the new Bold Doc, 2 cost uninkable, 1 3 quest for 1, and on play you discard your hand. You may discard your hand to draw 2 cards, and even if you have no hand, that's fine, you still draw 2. Running 4 copies of Grumpy, 3 cost inkable, 3 1 quest for 1. While one of your knight characters is at a location, that character gains resist +2, which it does include himself. When I originally reviewed this, I misread that and I thought it was only other knights, but it does include him. Running 2 copies of Sneezy, 4 cost inkable, 3 4 quest for 1. When you play this character, Chosen Knight gets Challenger 2 this turn. Those are the only actual dwarves that we're playing, but we're also playing 4 copies of the new 7 Dwarves Mine. 2 cost inkable, 2 to move there, 6 willpower, 1 passive law, and during your turn, the first time you move a character here, you may deal 1 damage to chosen character. If the moved character is a knight, deal 2 damage instead. So we are largely built around this specific card. Being able to deal 2 damage every time you move a knight to this location, and even potentially bouncing them back and forth between 2 different ones, sounds so good and so fun. Now 2 to move there is super expensive. So I'm playing 1 copy of Map of Treasure Planet, 3 cost inkable item, 2 abilities. Exert, you pay 1 less ink for the next location you play this turn, so just to get this 7 Dwarves Mine into play, or the Rapunzel's Tower. And Show the Way, you pay 1 less to move your characters to a location. So if we can get this Map of Treasure Planet down and suddenly we're just moving here for 1, that's super good. If this Map of Treasure Planet gets removed by item removal, go figure, then we cry. You could go to a higher count of these. However, I think if you do, then you are bricking far more often than not, because it is such a specific interaction. And yes, we are kind of trying to build around it. If you want to go up to a higher map count, then I don't blame you, but I'm just using 1. And honestly, I think sometimes, because we're not super top heavy, a couple of our characters are, but we're not super top heavy. I think sometimes just paying the 2 is going to be quite reasonable just to deal the 2 damage. But if you want to raise to a higher map count, then fair enough. As I mentioned, we're also running 2 copies of Rapunzel's Tower, 2 cost inkable, 1 8. No passive law game, but characters get +3 willpower while here. So this is a way that we, if we don't have 2 7 Dwarves Mines down, then we can move out of the mine for only 1, to then set us up to move hopefully back to the Seven Dwarves Mine to do this damage again. Obviously, like, if you've got the map of Treasure Planet out, then that helps. But if you've only got the 2 mines without the map, then it's 2 to move between them. And yes, you're then constantly doing 2 ping damage, but sometimes your ink will just be, you'll have enough ink that you'll only be able to afford to do a move for 1 and then a move for 2, something like that. It's also just an interesting location. It's cheap to move there. It's got a big body, and giving extra war power is pretty cool. For our supporting characters, we are running a 4/4 Robin Hood line. You could change this, because we're not Whole New World. We're not even playing Grab Swords. Maybe you want to get those cards in, which is perfectly reasonable. So if you do, I'd keep the Robin Hood line. If you don't, you could move away from this line if you wanted to. Our main draw engine is Rapunzel. I'm also running 2 copies of Surfer Stitch for additional card draw. Yeah, I think I just built this deck with the idea in mind, like, that I wanted not to be the deck that was playing Wheel. Like, if anyone's playing Wheel, I want it to be them. And we just benefit from Stitch, Rapunzel, or potentially even Doc by discarding and drawing 2 if we can flood the field. We are running 3 copies of Snow White, who allows you to pay 1 less ink to play your 7 dwarf characters, which could be pretty cool. I'm running 4 copies of Doc, who obviously we know on Quest makes you pay 1 less for each character. And then we're playing 1 copy of the old Snow White, the Well-Wisher. She is a Floodborn, so she can shift onto the other Snow White, and on Quest, you return a character card from your discard to your hand. That could be pretty cool. And we of course had to play 2 copies of the new Fair-Hearted, who gets resist 1 for each other knight character you have in play, and Quest for 3. She is exerted to Ratigan, very large mouse. But outside of that, you should be pretty safe. Running 4 copies of Bear because we don't want them playing Grab Sword. Grab Sword is probably fine in some instances, especially if you're at the tower. And like the resist that you can get from Grumpy. But be prepared, we super hate. And then we've got 4 Storm because we're running the 4 copies of Ballroom Sensation Cinderella anyway. And 3 copies of Strength for a Raging Fire. And 2 copies of Stout Hearted because she can shift onto the Cinderella. And she's another knight. So that's where I've started for my 7 Dwarves build. Let me know what you think. Actually, shout out to, there's been a person in the last couple of videos that has commented talking about, yo, mid-range knights is the way to go. You may not even be paired with Amber, but I hope I didn't let you down with this list. Alright, I probably told a lie. This is definitely the most on the fun side, fun around the table sort of deck. We got Merlin's crib, yo, my name is Merlin, and welcome to my crib. We are playing the new Merlin's Cottage. 1 cost Inkable, 1/7, no passive lore. Each player plays with the top card of their deck face up. So, just to mention, if you play something like Friends or Whole New World, you do need to, like, reveal each card, because each card, in turn, as soon as you drew, that next card should have been face up before you drew it. So you do need to reveal each card. And we are also going to utilize the Bruno Madrigal, who exerts, you name a card. If it's the name card, then you gain 3 lore and add that card to your hand. And obviously this is huge lore gain. He's evasive. Bruno's super cool, and this is going to be a way to consistently get him online. We have other cards that can look at the top card of the deck. They're not consistent, they're not great. And hey, I'm not saying this is necessarily going to be consistent, but at least this Merlin Cottage just sits on the board. It's super cheap. 7 willpower is perfectly respectable. So that is our primary win condition, really. And to support all that, for 1 dropped, we've got 4 Chernabog and 4 Broom. I think if your deck is face up, then this makes these so much better, because, like, so it's always good because you're just digging, but, like, if you know that top card is really going to change your turn, then that can really influence you decide whether you decide to take this draw or not. Our bounce package is 3 Snake, 4 Fox. I'm running 3 Crab so that I've still got a little bit more board control. I'm running 4 Goat and 4 Rabbit because they are still just goated. And we're also running 1 copy of the Intellectual Visionary on play. If you shifted, then search your deck for any card. So this can be great to help us, like, if we want to find Bruno, maybe we need to find the Merlin's Cottage, or just whatever we need at that time. We don't have a lot of big threats. We're not, we're low range. We're really depending on Bruno to do the majority of the work for us. I am running 2 Merlin Squirrel, who on play and leaving play, you look at the top card of your deck. So that's another way that we can look at the top card. And again, he's another Merlin that can be shifted onto, so he's not bad by any means. 2 copies of Mickey to be some ramp. We're on 4-1 jump ahead because, like, I think our 3 drop, I think, is a bit more competitive, personally. Like, this could absolutely change. You could prioritize one or the other. You may even want to try and find room for the, what's her name? Chicha, who lets you draw when you put the second card into your Inkwell. But we're already paired with Amethyst. We've got Friends, we've got Merlin. I don't think it's necessarily needed. I'm running 1 copy of Kuzco to get rid of items or locations. I'm running 3 Befuddle, mostly for daisies, like offset the early game. Maybe you're interrupting a shifter and giving you a little bit more time. Again, these feel a little flex. 2 copies of Let It Go to get rid of big threats, because we don't have a lot of ways of doing it. I'm running 2 copies of Sorcerer's Hat. This is more for theming. Like, this is probably the most flexible spot in the deck. But again, Merlin's Cottage, bro. Like, if you know it's going to make a huge difference to your turn, just paying 1 to draw is super good, right? We're running 4 copies of the library. I actually did start with these as Queen's Castles, but I actually think the library makes more sense in this build where we are much lower to the ground. There's definitely an argument for both, but I think the library is definitely what you should... I don't think you should be playing castles in this without the library. Like, I think a split will prioritize the library in this particular build. And then I'm running 1 copy of Belle of the Ball. 4 cost, uninkable, 2/3, quest for 2. She has ward, and on play, your other characters gain ward until the start of your turn. So protecting the Bruno Madrigal, I think, is pretty big. And again, just protecting like your goats, your rabbits, your Merlin. Like, there's not a ton of value here. Again, this is very flexible, but I do think protecting your Bruno sounds good. And again, because we're a bounce deck, we can reuse this multiple times. You may prefer the idea of playing Aurora, who is a 5 cost, but she's an inkable. She also quests for 2, and she just provides blanket ward. The problem is, if they remove her, then the ward is instantly removed. Whereas you put this Belle down, even if the Belle is removed, which is hard because she's got ward, then ward remains. But yeah, definitely flexible. Definitely one of the more... asterisk cards in the deck, but it was just something that I thought was fun and wanted to include. So that was that was Merlin's crib. Let us know what you think. Next up, we've got some more Ruby Steel. This time we are going to be using repeat. I definitely find this joke way funnier than it is, but you had to know that I was super interested in building this. And again, it's Pete. It's like the original bad guy. So let's start with the big boy, running 4 copies of Steamboat Rival. 7 cost inkable, 6/6, quest for 2. When you play this character, if you have another character named Pete in play, you may banish chosen opposing character. So obviously, being dependent on the Pete makes this bad, but... if you, like, other than that, it's a cheaper Maleficent with 1 more willpower and 1 less strength. Which I actually prefer because Survive Zeus doesn't take out Castle in 1, but I still think I prefer it this way around. But obviously the fact that you've got to already have a Pete on board. So we've obviously nearly maxed out on Pete's. We're also running 3 copies. He's the only one we're not maxed out on because he's uninkable. 3 copies of the Wrestling Champ. 3 cost, uninkable. I've said that 3 times, I think. 1/3, quest for 1, and repeat. Exert, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a character named Pete, you may play it for free. So exert this on turn 4. Immediate Steamboat Rival, broken. Running 4 copies of the Games Referee, who we're all familiar with, and is just a good card. And then 4 copies of Pastry Chomper, who's a 3 cost inkable 4/3. So we have 4, 8, 12. We have 15 Petes in our deck. That's a 1 in 4, people! That's a 1 in 4. That math's probably wrong. Like, again, it changes based on what you draw in your opening hand, and then what you draw on turns 1 to 4. But that's 1/4 for the deck is Pete. So yeah, to support all that, we are a whole new world variant. We're running the 4/4 Robin Hood and the 4/4 Mickey Mouse with the 1 drop. I'm running a 4/1 Sisu line just because it's just still so well statted, and like it's another way of potentially having removal depending on what the opposing board looks like. I'm running 4 copies of Smee for the stats, 3 copies of Gaston to help us with one-shotting the Daisy, with staying out of Flynn, Frenemy, range, and just 4/2 is a good stat line. 3 copies of Benja for item removal, Maui to control the board, 2 copies of Medusa, and then I'm right on 4 Whole New World as I mentioned, and 4 copies of Brawl. You may want to find room for a Grab Your Swords in here. I think that's perfectly reasonable, especially because we're on 4/4 of Mickey and Robin Hood. And hey, like, you may want to like drop the Mickey. You may want to go just with the Robin Hood line, and find something else to do with these 8 spaces. I think that's perfectly reasonable, but this is my original build for repeat. And finally, I have what I think is my masterpiece. We have MOO-Fasa. So we're a MOO-Fasa build where we are utilizing the Betrayed Leader. And let's look at some of the big bodies that we could cheat into play. Let's start off with the main cow herself. We have Clarabelle, Light on her hooves, 7 cost Inkable, 5/6, quest for 2, shift 5. At the end of your turn, if the opponent has more cards in their hand than you, draw into, you have the same number. So this can be an absolutely incredible draw engine. Other ways of drawing, I'll just say straight away, we've got 4 Rapunzel, and that's it. But hopefully that is enough. So this Clarabelle is cool. We are also running 4 copies of the 1-drop to be a potential shift line. And again, I think it's incredible item removal for Emerald. And then our other big bodies running 3 copies of John Silver. Let's hear it in the chat for John Silver. If you're a Silver fan, I want to see some love for him. 6 cost Inkable, 5/5, quest for 2, and pick your fights. When you play this character and whenever he quests, choose an opposing character gains Reckless during their next turn. So I love John Silver. 5/5 is a great body. Dice to Zeus, which is a shame, but you're always getting on play use just for giving Reckless. So I think this is super, super cool, and it's super online, only being a 6-drop, and because we are playing 4 Doc and 2 Gaston, which we'll talk through a bit more in a minute. But I think it's super online. Love John Silver. We're also running 3 copies of Prince Philip, Vanquisher of Foes, 9 cost Inkable, 6/6, quest for 3. Shift 6 is relevant because we're playing Morph. Decided not to play. There is another Philip, an uninkable one that gives ward to your other heroes, but we weren't running enough heroes that I wanted to commit to it. But if you wanted to, you could play that. He's evasive and swift and sure. When you play this character, banish all opposing damaged characters. So again, if they're we have no ways of doing ping, but they're going to be challenging into us. There's going to come a point where, if you hit this off MOO-Fasa, even if you're not banishing anything, it's still a great hit. A 6/6 quest of 3 is with evasive is awesome. And at the very least, you should be banishing the thing that challenged MOO-Fasa. Again, they could Dragon's Fire or get rid of it in a different way, but I think he could be super online. And we're also running 2 copies of Milo Thatch, King of Atlantis, 7 cost uninkable, 4/4, quest for 3. Shift 4 is relevant because of our 3 copies of more for playing, but I'm also running 3 copies of the 1-drop. And when this character is banished, return all opposing characters to their player's hand. This is one of our most efficient board clears, but basically our only way of clearing multiple bodies from the board. And if you can bounce multiple cards back to if they play around Clarabelle, and you can get the Milo Thatch to be banished in some way, and then bounce all the characters back to their hand, and then get your Clarabelle draw off, then that seems a little bit spicy. I'm running 1 copy of Perdita, who on play and on quest gets back a character with 2 or less, which is a lot of our characters, so I think she's a great inclusion. 2 copies of Cricky, who gives Challenger 3 to all your characters, so some of our lower but smaller bodies can have aggressive challenging turns out of nowhere, and it's another 5-drop, which if you don't hit Gaston, then I just wanted a couple more 5-drops. We're already running obviously the 4 MOO-Fasa, and we are running a 4/3 Queen line because even if you don't shift, this can be a reasonable drop it on 4 after playing Doc. It's a body that helps us control the early game a little bit more, and we're also playing 1 copy of Minnie, who banishes a character on play. She banishes a character of 5 strength or more, which again, there's already quite a lot of bodies that applies to, but having this Queen line means that she's more online. Mention the Rapunzels. We're also running a 4/2 Jack and Lyle line, which I've mentioned these before. This is a great answer to Daisy's just absolutely cry if you see things like this. I'm actually really, really rating Jack and Lyle at the moment. I think Reckless is super, super strong right now. Maybe it always was. I think either it is at the very least strong now, and I think there's an argument to say that it has been underrated for a while. They can get out of it by singing, which some decks will just do that. But I don't know, man. I really like the Jack and Lyle. It gives us a little bit more board control, especially on the draw, because on the play, you're nearly always going to want to be able to play Doc or Gaston. But I think on the draw, it gives you some real comeback potential. Originally, in my original build of this that I actually shared on Twitter, I was playing lower counts of these, and I was playing 2 Diablo, which I don't think is actually a good shout. But yeah, these Doc and these Gaston, obviously if you play Doc on 3, then that gives you a turn 4/5 drop, which I've mentioned, and playing Gaston can give you a 6 drop, so that we can immediately play Perdita, or we can play John Silver, or again, you can just play multiple smaller characters and get a lot of bang for your buck. But yeah, these are super important, I believe. And then for our lower end, 4 copies of Ursula, get rid of the bead preps, grab swords, things like that. 3 copies of Morph, because we've got a fair few characters that can shift. The Clarabelle, the Milo Thatch, the Prince Philip, the Queen. And I didn't have a whole lot of 2-drops, so I wanted to play some morphs as opposed to maxing out on the 1-drops. Because as you can see, we've got 4 Clarabelle. I think she's the most important to have 4 of, just because as well as being a shift option, I think the item removal is really good. And then I'm on 3 Queen and 3 Milo. So that's how I've warranted it. I think it just gives you better curves more often than not, but you could absolutely play around with these counts. And then I'm running 2 Bonsai just to be like a super aggressive quester who normally trades for whatever challenges into him. And then on my only non-character card, I'm running 1 copy of Bibbidi Bobbidi Moo. Now, it's partly for the... I'm partly trolling, but I actually don't think it's awful. Reusing your Lyle and Jack abilities, I think is super good. Replaying Rapunzel could be super good. Replaying Minnie Mouse could be super good. Replaying Cricky, replaying Perdita, replaying John Silver, replaying Prince Philip. I think there's actually a lot of synergy here. You could absolutely take this out, but I don't think it's as bad as some of you are immediately judging it to be. But that is my MOO-Fasa list. I hope you liked it. And that is it for my 9 rogue decks for set 5 meta. We're nearly at the hour mark, so I'll finish up now. But yeah, it was super fun making these. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. And yeah, absolutely give me feedback, whether from a more fun or a more meta perspective on things that you would change. But yeah, other than that, this weekend is going to be DLC Toronto, which I will absolutely have my eye on. It's going to be super interesting. Like, it's a 1-day meta, and I know I will do a top 16 deck list video for that. I know not as many people will necessarily be interested because it's not set 5 format, which I know a lot of people are just, if it's not set 5, they don't care. But I will still be covering that for as soon as I can get the deck lists from Monday onwards. But that's it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you're brand new to the channel, please subscribe for all things Lorcana. Hit that like button to show support, and we'll see you soon.